How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. This is from 1988, directed by John Carl Buechler, and it stars Lar Park Lincoln, Kevin Blair, and Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder is here finally. That's great. In this one, a young girl with telekinesis accidentally kills her father and returns to Crystal Lake 10 years later with her mother and therapist. Sensing someone at the bottom of the lake, she accidentally unleashes Jason, but no one's going to believe her. Jason will work his way through a bunch of partying teenagers and then eventually face the telekinetic girl, and it's going to turn into one of his biggest challenges yet. Yeah, it's the unofficial Jason Vs Carrie, which is what everybody remembers this installment for. Ton of other great things, but I guess let's talk about that first. I think the story was something like they wanted to do Freddy vs. Jason. The Nightmare people weren't on board for it just yet, and that movie would take forever to get made, so they wanted to do a versus movie anyway, so they did Jason vs. Carrie, but on the Carrie side, unofficially, you know? So, Jason, who had always plowed through teenagers in the past, now has to face a super teenager. It's going to be a lot harder, and some people didn't initially like this. They're like, oh, magic and Friday the 13th, or the supernatural at least. And I would say, yeah, I get that. You know, some people want their Friday the 13th to be realistic. However, Jason is a zombie at this point. He was brought back to life with lightning in Part 6, so if Jason's a zombie, who cares if there's supernatural elements? There already was. And plus, doing this as like a step to build up to Freddy vs. Jason, and then you'd also get, you know, in Phase 3, Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell with heavier, unrealistic elements. So this is a good midpoint to kind of get you ready for what may have been going too far in some cases, but it was a good midpoint to introduce more supernatural elements into the series, and I do love a versus movie. I do love a big antagonist, someone tougher and harder for Jason to take down, and yeah, Jason vs. Carrie, that's just really fun. But not everybody was on board with that, and I get it, but still, I like it. But the biggest thing, what I love more than that, the best thing about this movie is this is the first Kane Hodder Jason, and Jason in this movie is awesome. This is zombie Jason at his peak. He's been in the lake for a long time, and in turn he's really rotten. Part of his mask is missing and you can see teeth. There's several places where bones are sticking out of him. He's a really grungy zombie, and he even has the chain from Part 6 wrapped around his neck. This is the coolest design Jason we've ever seen, but he's also super tough. He's Kane Hodder. He's big, he's strong, he's aggressive. This Jason is much more likely to freaking burst through a wall, and when he gets knocked down, he's going to get up again much more than the other Jasons. He is the toughest Jason, and that's really cool. And he also has some cool kills to go with that. This is where one of the series' most iconic kills comes in, and that is the sleeping bag kill, where Jason gets this lady in a sleeping bag, whacks her against a tree. It is just, it's brutal Jason. There is some other stuff. Jason gets a party kazoo, shoves it in someone's eye, and it makes the kazoo sound. You also get him chasing someone with like a weed eater with a circular saw blade. I'm not really sure what that tool is for, but it's really cool. So yeah, tons of brutal moments, but sadly, the real butchers in this series. The ratings board did chop away at these kills a fair bit, and you can tell that a lot of them are missing their oomph, which is really sad. This one, though, some of them kind of survived. They have a work print. So yeah, they're way too low quality to reintroduce back into the movie, but we do actually get to see in the bonus features the slashed scenes. We get to see what these kills were supposed to be like, and there's really great special effects work that sadly got cut out of the movie, and I wish we had a better quality copy of it, but at least we get to see what they were supposed to be. You know, so it's something. But this was back in the day where it's like, oh, we're not using this, gotta throw it away. And that's why the original uncut versions of the Friday the 13th films are like the king of horror lost media. If anyone ever is digging through a cave and finds the deleted Friday the 13th footage from really any of the films, people would rush out and buy new Blu-rays so quick. Because, yeah, a ton of stuff was cut out of this series, and sadly, this is an example where some of the kills are missing their punch because ratings board, you know? But anyway, while we do have that, we also have the characters, and there is a bunch of cookie-cutter characters here, a bunch of stereotypes we've seen before, you know, the stoner character, there's a sci-fi writer who's the nerd character, and we get like these two girls who came to the party and they want to party, and one of them's much more on board and the other one kind of wants to break out of her shell. So yeah, there are some, you know, kind of generic stock cannon fodder characters, but the ones that work really do work, and ironically, bad character, like memorable bad characters in here. Not bad as in poorly written, but bad as in evil. You have Tina, and she has a psychiatrist who's a real evil jerk in here. He is saying, I'm doing this to help you, but you realize he's taking her back to the cabin, intentionally trying to trigger her because her powers are on her emotions, you know? So he's doing this whole thing, saying you have to do this, it's for your own good. Really, he's just in it to study her powers. And then Tina, this boy at the party, fall in love, and this preppy girl really is jealous that Tina got the guy, so she's going to go after her, and the preppy girl, you know, being like really vindictive, you know, again, another memorable evil character, you know, so out of the non-evil Jason, out of the non-Jason evil characters, there is quite a few in here, you know, so there are memorable lead characters, you know, Tina especially is really cool with the powers and, you know, the crazy backstory and stuff. So there is good memorable characters here in the leads, and the rest are, yeah, kind of cannon fodder. So overall, from like a technical standpoint, this isn't like a groundbreaking, oh my gosh, you have to see it film, but it's just such a ton of fun, you know? Jason Vs Carrie, the super counselor, someone, well, not really a camp counselor, but you know what I mean. Someone to give Jason a bit of a run for his money, a good challenge. And then we have Jason being the biggest, best, toughest version of himself we've seen so far. This is the peak of zombie Jason with an amazing design. So yeah, Friday the 13th Part 7 is just a ton of fun, you know, and I really do love it. So I would say, yeah, from a technical film school standpoint, oh, you're not gonna like this. But as, hey, let's go out and have a ton of fun with a slasher movie, it's pretty cool. Sucks the ratings board got a hold of it, but other than that, really, really fun. And I'd say this is definitely my favorite out of Phase 2. Phase 2 being 5 through 8. Definitely my favorite Phase 2 film. This movie's cool, and Kane Hodder's here, and Zombie Jason, you know? Without further ado, I want to take a minute to analyze the movie. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, so I'll be avoiding the end bits, but I do want to say my piece on a few of the plot points and kind of take a little deeper dive here. So, without further ado, let's talk about the plot. We open up with sort of a previously on, and we get to see a bunch of Jason's highlights, his, craziest moments from the first 6 movies. This is actually narrated by the bike guy, even though the bike guy is dead by this point, but whatever, it's fun to see him back. And you actually get a bunch of scenes with Tommy Jarvis, even though he doesn't actually show up. But enough to remind you what's been going on. This is before home video was super big, so you kind of needed to catch up. But really, all you need to remember is that Jason's back to life, and he's chained to the bottom of the lake. And that's all you really need. Anyway, after the flashback, we get the proper prologue, and we get to see this husband. He's abusive, he hit his wife, and that's going to cause his little girl to run out, get in a boat, and get into the lake where Dad can't hurt her. And Dad runs up, come back here, and she gets angry, and her newly found psychic powers cause the dock that he's on to get crushed, and she accidentally kills her father. And of course, she didn't mean to. She instantly regrets this, and it makes her sad, because it's still her dad, right? Now, a few things with this is we get to see that Jason is actually there under the water as this whole thing is happening in his proper Part 6 getup with his yellow gloves and everything. And he's in the lake by this house now, and he'll be there 10 years later when the movie picks up. And I'd like to say, first of all, Jason can breathe underwater. I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but I always found it was one of his fun abilities, that he can just be underwater for at least 10 years. But another thing that I don't think enough people quite get right is Jason is by this random lake house now. And a lot of people said, wait, wasn't he by Camp Forest Green? Why is he by a lake house now? And a lot of people, when they do their timeline estimations for this series, they say the prologue takes place right after Part 6. Which, no, that makes no sense. It has to have been a little bit of time. I think they're thinking that for whatever reason, Jason and his big rock just drifted to another part of the lake. That makes no sense. He's got to be right where Tommy left him. So, if Jason's where Tommy left him and Camp Forest Green is gone, that means time has passed. And that means, obviously, if you send your kids to a new camp and Jason terrorizes them, that camp's gonna get closed down. So Camp Forest Green has been demolished, the area has been rezoned, and then they build lake houses there. They build lake houses, and this girl has to have had time to go there a few times, which means, I would say, if you didn't factor in for the destruction of Camp Forest Green and the redistricting and the building of lake houses into your Friday the 13th timeline, you really need to do that and add at least 5 years into your timeline estimation. Jason is at the same place, Camp Forest Green is gone. Or at least that's the way I see it. So yeah, this movie actually takes place in the early 2000s if you do the math, which is crazy. But anyway, enough of that nerd rant. It's 10 years later. This girl, Tina, with the powers, she's been in a mental asylum, a mental health facility, trying to get, help, and she's fallen prey to this evil doctor. This doctor says, I want to help you, but secretly doesn't really care about her well-being. He found out about the powers, and he's trying to get her to use them, and it's not so that she can face the past. He's hoping she gets upset, and he brings her back here. So she's at the cabin, and they say, oh, this is to help you out. But rather than talking about it, the first thing he's doing is trying to get her to move a matchbook, and she at first doesn't. She gets a little upset, it moves and then lights on fire. So, yeah, all he cares about is exploiting her. Bad, bad dude. And then on top of that, there's a cabin next door where a bunch of teenagers are going to celebrate a birthday. Which I have to point out, this is kind of similar to the Friday the 13th Part 4 setup, where you had your main characters, including the Jason killer, in one cabin, and they actually own it, and then you have a rental cabin next door with a bunch of partying teens. It's the same Part 4 two-cabin setup, which I found is kind of interesting. Anyway, there's a guy there who doesn't really care about partying, but it's his cousin's birthday, so he has to show up, and he meets Tina, and the two instantly hit it off. There's this preppy girl that wanted the guy, and she's upset, and she's going to bully Tina a little bit, because, you know, ever since Carrie, if you have a girl with superpowers, if she has psychic abilities, for whatever reason, other people are gonna bully her. So there's that going on. So between the kids next door and the psychiatrist, Tina is upset and she's moping by the lake when she feels a man in the lake where her father died. And she thinks this man might be her father, and she frees him from the lake bottom. However, he pops out, not her dad, zombie Jason. She gets scared and faints, and the psychiatrist says, oh, it's all just a vision. It's in your head. The scary older man is how you process your father. And she'll see visions of him later because, yeah, in addition to moving stuff with her mind, she sees visions too. And the visions are of what is happening in other places or is about to happen. And the psychiatrist is blowing them off as well. Those aren't real. Those are all in your head. And I have to point out too, she accidentally frees Jason from the bottom of the lake, just like how Tommy accidentally brought him back to life in Part 6. So this is the second movie in a row where your protagonist inadvertently caused the whole Jason thing. However, with Tina, I'd say that she's much more forgiven because this has been like, what, 10, 15 years after Part 6? She definitely had no idea and she was just looking for her father. So I understand that a lot better. But anyway, one of the first people Jason kills is the birthday boy Mike before he gets to the party. He kills him, so all the people at the party are waiting around for the guests to arrive, and he's just not showing up. There's also a little bit of a meta humor by calling this guy Mike, because people will go out, hey Michael, is that you? In a Friday the 13th movie. I think it's a joke about the Halloween franchise, you know, having people go outside, Michael, is that you? No, this isn't Halloween, it's Friday the 13th, Jason's here. So I think that's a bit of a meta joke. But anyway, Jason is working his way through the camp counselors. As I said earlier, the biggest, toughest Jason we've seen. Kane Hodder brings a lot to this role. He is out to get people and he'll bust through walls to do it. Really, really cool. The people will start to get picked off and he'll have to face Tina in a big, epic fight. Jason versus Carrie. Overall, I think this is pretty fun. It is just a really good, fun popcorn slasher movie. Great versus battle. Great new Jason versus Kane Hodder. It's just really cool, and I really do like it. Again, more from a popcorn movie standpoint, but there's a lot of cool stuff to like here, and definitely my favorite out of Phase 2, so really, really like this one. I'd have to rank it pretty high up there. You gotta love Kane Hodder, right? Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Friday the 13th playlist. I've covered the past movies, so 1 through 6 are in there, and I hope to get to Jason Takes Manhattan pretty soon. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Friday the 13th playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.